And once again, welcome you all. I'm right in the midst of introducing Ximena Roth, our guest professional this evening, who works in international marketing for United Parcel Service, which is a global organization, and she'll tell us more about that. She'll tell us more about how she's grown in her career and also how her career has influenced her family dynamics, which is very interesting. So welcome, Ximena. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And this morning for you, she is in Atlanta, Georgia. That's not Atlanta behind you, I don't think.
No, it is not. I think it's Oregon, which I've never been to, but I like the picture. So thank you and good evening to all of you. Good day.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight, Ximena. And let's begin by first you sharing with us how you really developed your passion for the field that you are in.
Yes, and I wanted to add to that question, is it a passion or was it, did it develop in some other way? So please.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, I think that second question is perfect. So again, I'm so glad to be with you all. Thank you. I would say, so I am in marketing. I'm a marketing manager for our what we call U.S. International Business Unit at UPS. UPS has been around for we're actually celebrating next week our 115th anniversary. So it's a very old company, but it's been able to, as you can imagine, innovate and shift over the years and expand its business model. We do the entire supply chain and logistics. I know you recently had a supply chain expert, so you already had an intro into the industry, but I am particularly in the marketing function. And for our US International Business Unit, so we really focus on US exports, so anything originating from the United States going all over the world. And typically our customers are still based out of the US. We have some external based customers, but most of them still are based out of the US, but again, want to basically grow their business, grow and expand their product line. And so I do the marketing, I do particularly our digital marketing, our channel management. So I work with our direct sales teams, I work with outsourced sales teams, I work with our paid advertising, our paid search, our promotions team, our emails team. So basically think of like the communications. How do we communicate to customers? And that's what I'm in charge of. And to Vicky's point, I don't think I would say marketing is my passion. I would say that something that I've learned being at UPS, and it's been 6 years now, is helping small and medium business owners has become a passion for me. I have had such great connections, conversations, insights into entrepreneurs and small and business owners. And you hear it a lot, at least here in the United States. They're really what make the economy grow and move. They employ so much of our individuals here in the United States. And honestly, for UPS, and we're very blunt about this, they are our most profitable segment, and so our enterprise huge customers don't give us the profit that the small and medium businesses do. And so anyway, so from a business standpoint, we want to focus on that, but also me personally, I've just really enjoyed meeting the people behind the services that we provide, and so if I can really understand the customer, what they need, what their pain points are. As you mentioned, Anita, the UPS is such a huge company that we really have a lot of resources to be able to meet those needs. And so if I can use my influence to meet those needs in a way that makes sense for the business, that's what gets me really excited. And I don't know if I would still say it's my passion, but it's become something that I am really excited about and get motivated by from a professional standpoint.
And I know that, I noticed because I'm friends with you on Facebook and LinkedIn, you're involved in other things besides your business. I'm not sure how you find time for that, but it's really important, I think, to know that this idea of networking with others and supporting the Latino Chamber of Commerce and those kind of things. How did you get involved in those, and how do you find the time to, and what benefit does it have? That's a lot of
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely. So it is, and I'll just briefly mention I am originally from Mexico. I was born in a city called Monterrey. I lived there until I was 5 years old, and then my family moved to Miami, Florida, in the United States. Which, if you know anything about Miami, I call it the capital of Latin America. It is just there are so many people from all over Latin America that live in Miami, and so I grew up there my entire basically up until I graduated from college, I was in Miami. And so I was constantly surrounded by people of maybe not Mexican culture, my country in particular, but from Latin culture. So Cubans, Dominicans, Colombians, and so the language was there, the overall culture, the food, the music. And so that's always been home for me. And when I left Miami, I realized Miami's pretty unique. Nowhere else in the country do I find this rich, just prolific Hispanic community. And so I've always been very intentional about wherever I go to find those networking groups. So whether it was an undergraduate, I found a club. I was VP of outreach for the Latin American Business Association within my business school. And so that's always been something that I've gravitated towards just because we have Hispanics in the United States are, as a population, continue to grow. We're reaching 20% of the population, but you really don't see that representation at business levels, at management levels, at executive levels. I read recently that only 4% of executives are Hispanic in the United States. That's vastly, that's so much lower than the percentage that we are of the population. So now that I am in the business world, and I can certainly share about my shift into corporate, it's just been that's been a passion of mine of how do I bring up others who may not have had the opportunities that I have, or who don't have the network, or how can I help them with skills, any of that. And so I am on the board for the women's group under our Georgia, which is the state that I live in, Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So UPS is a sponsor. We have a great partnership. So it's been a very nice intersection between my role at my job and then obviously my role in the community. And as to time, man, that's tough. That is because I don't feel like I have a lot of time. I have 4 kids between the ages of 3 and 7 years old. And so they still are very dependent on my husband and me. But we are out of the baby phase, which I think has been a real blessing, honestly, for us. I feel like we've been able to breathe a little bit more. And so there are evenings that I'm okay, going off to what I need to do. And then there are evenings that my husband goes off and meets with his friends or networks. And so that's helped. That's been helpful. But I have had to say no to other things. So sometimes I'm just the promotion, sometimes I just communicate, but I actually don't go to the events, so I think it just depends on prioritization. What am I going to prioritize? But in general, being able to build up the Latino community, particularly in business, is something that I'm passionate about.
Before we talk about your family, could we learn a little bit about your career ladder, like from the time you graduated from college to where you are today? Could we hear a little bit about that? I think that would be really interesting.
Absolutely. Yes. So when I graduated undergrad and as a psychology major, but knew I did not want to go down a psychology route. Yeah, so Anita, we have something in common, although I never practiced, never ever practiced. I went straight into nonprofit. And so I, for a short time, actually led a college ministry at my church in a small city in Illinois. But then about a year and a half afterwards is really when I started working for several years for a nonprofit in Chicago area, in Chicago, Illinois. I provided immigration legal services, mostly family-based and citizenship services, and I led our advocacy efforts. So we did a lot of advocacy for immigrants and refugees in the area. So as you can see, international has always been just a part of what I love to do and who I want to be connected to. I learned so much in that role, but really was realizing I was taking a lot of leadership roles on, and I felt like I did not have the educational background for management. And so I had never taken a business class or anything like that. So as I started thinking about going back to school, I was thinking about potentially getting a master's of public administration, which is more of that management in the nonprofit world. But I had a colleague and a good friend who actually challenged me to think about the MBA, the Master's of Business Administration. And when he mentioned it, I was like, I've never thought about business. My dad has been in corporate most of his life, but for me, when I thought about what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was sorry, I accidentally muted myself. It was never a businesswoman. And but then as I learned more about the degree, I learned more about how versatile it was. And really, you can take an MBA into nonprofit. It's not as easy to take an MPA, the public administration, into any other thing but, nonprofit or government. And so as I thought about that, I started giving the MBA more consideration. And I am very, very blessed that I was able to not only get into some really great business schools, but have my tuition paid for full. So I received a full fellowship to cover the tuition for those 2 years, which allowed, my husband and I, we moved from Chicago to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So I attended the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. It's called Keenan Flagler Business School, and I received my MBA there. So really that became a big pivot. And I won't go into all the details of how we, my husband and I had conversations during those 2 years, but basically I realized I really want the experience now of corporate. I want to be able to manage teams. I want to be able to understand even something like profit, that I had never even thought about before, the different functions, all that stuff. And so really that was my pivot, like I said, into UPS. And so after graduating, I moved to Atlanta. I had been recruited for the marketing strategy role here, and I've had 4 different roles here at UPS, and I'm happy to go into them. But I think for brevity's sake, I'll just say that. Vicky, did you have a follow-up question?
No, not actually follow-up. I missed, what was your bachelor's in?
Psychology.
Oh,
so I majored in psychology.
Okay, all right.
Yes, I minored in. I was going to say I minored in biology and Spanish, but that's not very.
Well, no,
very
we have
helpful.
different streams in India, and one of them is English, psychology, and journalism, and they kind of interweave psychology into things. So that I just wanted to double check on that. Okay, thank you. Please go ahead and continue. Anita?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I would love you to tell us more about, because you were saying you are okay to not mentioning, but please do the rest
The
of
roles.
Yes, the roles.
Absolutely. So I started at UPS 6 years ago as a senior analyst in, basically it was the industrial products industry segment. So we don't do this anymore, but we used to go to market with our products and services through industry segments. So we had, healthcare, we had retail, we had automotive, and I was part of industrial products. So I specifically worked with our field partners in marketing and sales to win business among industrial distributors, industrial manufacturers, et cetera. different subsegments within that industry. And so a lot of my work was analytical. So, running the reports and understanding macro trends and the economics of where we should even play in the space and where we should focus, how we should grow it. So that was very interesting because it was really kind of a hub of marketing. It was a great central location to understand how we do what we do and how we make money. And so I was in that role for a year and a half. Then I moved into it's called an affinity program or an associations management role, where I managed an outside partner, a vendor, and they reached millions of very small customers that were tied to UPS through discount programs. And so I helped with the strategy, the pricing, the marketing and the communications plan. It was a very different role because the first role was really working with basically larger middle market customers. And then I pivoted to these small customers that we were really mostly reaching out to digitally. And it was a very entrepreneurial role. It was, you did everything. And so I really appreciated the juxtaposition that I saw, between those first two roles. And then I will say that during that time, I became involved as a volunteer with a new council. It wasn't an official team. We just called it a council within UPS, basically trying to answer the question, should we have a separate strategy to reach women and minority-owned businesses? So minority as in Hispanic owned, African American owned, Asian American owned businesses. Or, what we've been doing is they've just been part of the general SMB, small and medium business market, and let's just continue with that. And so since that is, again, kind of getting to my passion of helping small and medium business owners, and then specifically helping women and minority owned small and medium business owners, I was so excited to be part of that group. And so separate from my job, we basically built a business case saying, hey, we need to do something for this particular segment because they are outpacing the market 2 to 5 times the general growth, and we are vastly underpenetrated in them in that segment. And so when we basically put the business case together, and the strategy, I was able to kind of work my way into a new role that way. And so I was able to join a very small team. There were 3 of us, so not a lot, but 3 of us on that team to really stand up this entire segment and team within the marketing function that has now grown. It's probably doubled in size employee-wise, but then has been able to do more through partnerships to reach that segment. And so that was my third role. To be frank, that was probably my favorite role at UPS. It was just so unique. It had its challenges because we didn't really have resources. So for anything, you were constantly asking for funding or investment or, buy-in from senior leaders. But it was probably the role that taught me the most, even about how to handle myself politically at UPS, with it being such a large company. My director and VP were just fantastic mentors, and I really, really owe them a lot in my career. And then, but since then, I knew I got to a point where, I've always been interested in international. None of my roles have been internationally focused. It's always been domestic. And so I want to make my way into the international marketing team. And so when this role came up, that really, that I could use the foundation of what I had been doing in my previous roles, but then have the international kind of challenge me. I applied, I interviewed, and I was chosen. So I've been in this role for a little over a year now. And it's had its own challenges as well, but I feel like I've been able to do a lot in it, which is also just very fulfilling.
Wow, that's amazing. It seems like you've had smooth transitions. Perhaps that's what I understand, but a lot of work that has gone into it. So you seem to have really dug into and really put your hands in and got into the middle of things and worked on it. Were there times when probably there were some setbacks, maybe here, maybe on the personal front, any front, So how do you go about facing them?
Yeah. Yes, it's always easy to make it a rosy picture, but I'll pinpoint the transition actually between my second and third role. I was about, let's say, 2.5 years into my time at UPS, and I was very I was very discouraged career-wise. I'll just say I was not really I enjoyed aspects of my job, but I basically didn't feel like I was being challenged or learning anymore. And I also didn't feel like I saw any advancement, And so there were moments where I just really did not. And actually Vicky was a mentor for me during that time, and some mutual friends. They heard a lot of venting from me. I was just very dissatisfied professionally, but it was during a time that I had 3 small kiddos at home. I had 3, and so when I thought about making the time and the effort to look for a job elsewhere, I was exhausted. Like, I was just so overwhelmed. And so I felt like, I'm not really happy here. I should probably move, find somewhere else, but I'm just so tired. Honestly, during that time was really when I got connected to who would end up becoming my director. And she's just been a wonderful mentor for me. And she has just, not only her, but really a lot she was the one who really spoke encouragement into my life. Like, she was the one who recognized skills that I had, or aptitudes that I had that were kind of unique. And then she actually ended up becoming the project manager for this volunteer team that we ended up doing, And so the fact that I still had enough out there that somebody else said, hey, you should have Ximena on this team because she'd be great. And this was someone separate from my director. The fact that I had at least enough, just that brand visibility out there that I was chosen for the team really shifted my entire career. Because honestly, this third role, like I said, I just can't speak enough about it. It was so fulfilling. It was my leadership was fantastic. They were the ones to promote me. They were the ones to really give me visibility to senior leadership that I hadn't had before. And so I think in those moments, but I'm kind of downplaying, but it was just very difficult to not even know how to move forward. I was in a place where I didn't even know what I needed to do. And that was earlier in a corporate career where I didn't really know corporate very well. I had come from my nonprofit job where I was in an office of less than 100 people, to now in a corporate headquarters of thousands of people. We have 500,000 people worldwide. It was just very different expectations, cultures, unspoken things that I didn't know. And so I think, in terms of how do you get through those moments, I think one is knowing who you are, and so now I will be honest, I've had some discouraging moments since then, but they've been so much different than back then, because I know much more, like, who I am, what my skills are, what I bring in terms of value. And so even though I can get a little bit discouraged, I'm not in that rut or that pit where I just didn't even know how to move forward. And then 2 is just having those encouragers in your life, having that support system. Obviously, my husband is my number one encourager. He's just been wonderful throughout my entire career, but even just having, like I said, these wonderful women at work who were the ones to really call that out, and who were able to advocate for me as well. And so seeing what they did for me, I love doing that for others now. However I can help bring other people up and out, and maybe spot something that they may not even know about, but say, hey, this is a gift that you have, like, grow it. That's been super, super important.
Wow.
Do you miss the nonprofit, or do you find fulfillment in meeting and with it, working with these minority groups? And what's it been like to switch from nonprofit to corporate?
Oh, yes, it's been very different. And not all not all nonprofits are the same, and not all corporates are the same. So I will say that, but ooh, I don't know where that one's coming from. But anyway, I will say it took me a while. I have never been a shy person, but coming into UPS and starting at their headquarters, everyone just was very, not very formal, but there was a certain level of formality and hierarchy that I was not used to in my nonprofit role. And so with that, I felt like I did shy away from sometimes introducing myself or making myself known, and so that I realized I probably should have, you know, grown my network a lot sooner at UPS, in that, and so that's been a shift. In terms of, do I miss nonprofit? I do. And I will say that this previous role working with minority owned businesses was the closest, because I was actually managing our partnerships with national nonprofits that served those. So basically a lot of the chambers of commerce that, helped Hispanic owned or AAPI owned or African American owned businesses. And I loved it. That was really a little bit of the best of both worlds. However, I just felt like in that role, I got to a place where I wasn't growing as much. And so I could stay there and really enjoy, what I do, but I wasn't going to be moving forward. And I felt like after a while, I was going to be pigeonholed into just that type of work. And I really wanted to show leadership, I can pivot and I can do more. And so I will say I miss it though. And so even being part of our Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce from a volunteer perspective has, helped my heart in keeping close to that community for sure.
Yeah. Do you have, before we talk about your family, because I really want to share some of those things with the audience, but do you have any future goals? Do you have, do you want to stay where you're at for a while? Do you, what
Yeah.
would you like to do in the future?
Yes. Well, without giving too much away, I feel I've been thinking a lot about my career recently, and about where I want to go. And I will say that I want to be more intentional. I enjoy corporate, and I enjoy particularly leveraging, and I might have mentioned this earlier, leveraging the resources we have to help others. And so with that, I'm trying to think through, what does it look like to maybe be closer to that nonprofit world, but leveraging resources from corporate. So I'm having some conversations with some folks who have done that type of work, who are at other organizations. And right now I'm just kind of in the information gathering and networking part of it. But I think there is a pivot for me to come, just because I really, in this role, I'll just be frank, I've realized that there are just certain parts of the business that I actually am not very interested in, and they're important for businesses, but I just don't want to be the one, in those details. And so when I think about, again, back to my skills, my experience, and then what I want to do, I think I'm starting to look at, potentially other, even under other industries, to be able to do that.
We don't want to put you on the spot. Okay, so I have told many people, and even those of you who missed the introduction. Hold on a second. I need to mute somebody. Okay. For those of you who didn't hear the introduction, for lack of a better word, Ximena in her family is the breadwinner. We use that term to say is the main person who brings in the income for the family. So they have 4 children between the ages of 3 and 7. And her husband also has a degree. And her husband's name is Andrew, by the way. They're very dear friends of ours. But it's not very often, especially in India, that we hear of stay-at-home dads or house husband, or I'm not even sure what Andrew calls himself, what term he prefers, and we would like to learn that. So, but I guess first of all, what helped you to make that decision for you to be the one pursuing the career?
Yes. So he's a stay-at-home dad. That is what we say. We
Sorry.
I'll just say that's okay. I'll say that when we were thinking about having kids, we were married for 5.5 years before we started having kids. But when we're thinking about having kids, we had hoped that we would be in a place financially or economically where one of us could stay home. And so we had always assumed that that person would be me, that I would be the stay-at-home mom, and he would continue. He was an accountant for a mid-sized firm in Chicago. And so that was kind of our plan. We actually went through a struggle to get pregnant. So we went through infertility, and that was a very, very difficult time, emotionally, especially for me. And that was during the time that I started thinking about going back to school. And so, thinking through the entrance exams and all this, it was kind of a chaotic time. But anyway, Andrew, back to my point about being encouraging. He was so encouraging during that time. I had no confidence in myself during that time. I felt like I'm not going to get into business school. I'm not going to get a good score on my exam. And even if I did get into business school, for me, it wasn't worth it without significant scholarship money, because I was thinking about going right back to nonprofit afterwards for a while. And so anyway, I just had no confidence it would happen. And he was my biggest cheerleader. He was always saying, like, you're going to do this, you're going to get in, and sure enough, it happened. So I got into the schools that I applied for. I received this full scholarship. We just felt like God was opening these doors. And so we felt like God was opening these doors for me career-wise. And then a few weeks after we had moved in with his parents for the summer, while we made the transition out to North Carolina, we found out that we were pregnant. And God opened up that door to family too. And so it was shocking. We were very surprised and we were very happy. We call, my oldest is named Isaac, because we literally just laughed when we found out we were pregnant after all of that. His name means laughter. And so anyway, so we had the conversation of, what do we do? Do we even go out to North Carolina anymore, or do we stay here? We were within, a few miles of proximity to his entire family, so we would have family support there. Otherwise, if we went out to North Carolina, we would be with nobody. And so after praying and talking it through, we just felt like this was the right opportunity for us to go out to North Carolina to get my MBA. And he actually he did not like his job. He did not like his job. He did it to provide for us, but he did not like being an accountant. He had actually been trying to get a job in ministry, and that door was not being opened. And so anyway, after much praying and talking, we decided, okay, you're going to be the stay-at-home dad, and you're going to be the stay-at-home parent and we thought for at least a couple of years, while we get through business school and maybe my first year of corporate, or my first year post MBA, then we'll figure it out. And so his company was wonderful, honestly, and very flexible. It allowed him to finish the year working remotely back before remote work was very prevalent. So he was able to finish working remotely out in North Carolina until our baby was born. And then he quit, and he became a stay-at-home dad. And that was a really chaotic time again, because I was in a full-time program with a newborn, and we were trying to figure out how to be parents without any family nearby. But thankfully we had a wonderful support system through our church, through the school, through our neighbors. So anyway, all of that being said, well, we actually got pregnant again. And so the next year I had another baby. So my boys are 11 months apart. So he just became, there were more kids at home to take care of, and he was able to do that. So like I said, we thought about it, that it would be maybe a couple of years and then we'd reevaluate. It has now been almost 8 years, and he's still a stay-at-home dad. And it has certainly been challenging at times, especially during COVID. I will say that has added a lot of different challenges. But it's given me the flexibility, honestly, to be able to do what I've been doing in terms of my career, as well as with my extracurriculars in the community.
Thank you for sharing that. Anita?
Yes. So as always, we love to ask this one question about how language plays a role in your work, your career.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, you're bilingual, right? You speak both languages fluently. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
So yes, being the language. Thank you, Anita. I don't want to forget that question.
Yes, language is very important. Language is crucial in what I do. And I'll just say, from a just communication standpoint, that's something that I realize that I have a skill in, especially at UPS. We tend to present through PowerPoint presentations. And I've been able to coach a lot of people who maybe they have a ton of slides, but they have, this point and this point, and it's not interconnected. And I'm able to coach them really tell a story, right? And so language is crucial in my particular role, because, and really at UPS, what I've seen, because you can have the data, you can have you can know all the facts and figures behind something, but if you cannot compellingly tell a story and influence your audience, you're not going to get anything done. And so I've been able to really work on that and tell the story of, okay, what's the situation? What is the complication or pain point that will compel the audience to want to do something about it, and how do you fix it? And so by the end of it, I want them to say, yes, like, we're on board with what you're proposing. And so I'm grateful that I've been able to pitch several things before senior leadership and have had buy-in on investments or on new partnerships, or so that's been really important for me. And it doesn't have to be a full presentation. It can be an email, it can be a meeting or a phone call, but you're always working on communication and influence, especially in marketing, I'll just say, both internally and externally. In terms of my bilingualism, I'm Spanish. Spanish is my first language, but honestly, I'm probably at this point more proficient in English, though I am fluent in both. I used my Spanish a lot in nonprofit because half of our clients were Spanish speakers, and so I was using Spanish every day. Unfortunately, I don't use Spanish every day now, but whenever I speak with our Hispanic small business owner community, there's always opportunity to speak Spanish, or what we call Spanglish, which is, kind of a mix of both. We butcher both languages to speak together. I do that. And then whenever I speak with our counterparts in LATAM, in the Latin America region, I'm able to, converse fluently with them. Although truthfully, we are rarely on a one-to-one meeting. We're usually part of a greater meeting, and so English just becomes the common language.
And what about your kids? Are they learning both languages?
I speak to my children in Spanish. They will answer back in English. It is very difficult for them to be really bilingual right now because they are home with my husband most of the time, and he does not speak Spanish, although he's learning through Duolingo. He's starting now that we've come back from Mexico. We visited my family last month, but anyway, so my children will understand it. They may not understand everything. They'll ask sometimes for clarity, but I'm very excited because my boys who just started school, they're in a bilingual school now. So they're in a dual language immersion program where half their day is Spanish, half their day is in English. And so I can already see that they are more likely to speak to me. And sometimes they will speak in Spanish, just very rarely. So we're trying to grow more of that. It's very difficult when you just have one Spanish speaker in the home.
Tell Andrew he can come to our Spanish conversation hub.
Yes.
I'll send him an invitation. Of course, it will be at 7:30 when he's taking the kids to school, but well, we also,
in the morning.
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
yeah, because
that's
it's at
true.
5 o'clock in the evening for
Yeah.
us. Yes. But anyway, we always like to open up the last few minutes for our audience to ask questions. And so I will go ahead and do that. Anita, did we leave out anything else important?
Yes, actually, there's one where we would like you to, any recommendations that you have for students when they choose a career, when they get into, if they get interested in marketing or management.
Strategizing, pursuing, the career, yes.
So I've, this kind of goes with your question about passion. I know that like follow your passion or whatever is something that's very common. I've been encouraged by several books that I've read lately about really kind of creating your passion as you go. And so with that, with career, don't feel like I did for a long time that you have to find your passion, because if you have that mentality, then you're kind of discontent until you get there, right? You always feel like you're not where you're exactly supposed to be until you get there. And even when you get there, it may not be what you thought, And so I think wherever you are now, I would say always be in learning mode. That's the most important thing. So always be in learning mode. What is something that, how are you growing? How are you growing intellectually? Whatever are things of interest to you, how are you growing those? Whether it's, being in the community or science, or how is it that you are growing that knowledge and that interest? And then 2, I would say, kind of take an assessment of where you are in terms of skills. What skills do you already have? Because you don't have to even have graduated to have skills. You already have things that you are good at, that you've been able to work on. And so kind of have that as your baseline and think about what it is that you would like to do. So do you want to be a marketing manager? Do you want to be a supply chain, expert? Do you want to be a doctor? Whatever it is that you want to be, and basically measure, okay, what's the skills gap there? And so you can start working towards that. And sometimes it might be a degree. You can't just be a doctor because you want to. You need a degree, but sometimes it might just be things that you can work on through an internship or through volunteer work, or however it is that you want to gain those skills. Because I'll say, even if you end up shifting, okay, I actually wanted to do something else, you're in learning mode and you're in growing mode, and you can always use those skills. So there are times that I can look back and say, oh, I did this because I wanted to go here. I no longer want to go here, but the things that I learned were still very valuable and still taught me and still raised my skill level to be able to do something else. And so I don't count that time as wasted. I don't count that time as lost if I'm learning. So just constantly be learning. Your career path isn't going to be a straight trajectory. It can, kind of go in different directions. But I think if you're focused on learning and growing, you're in a really good spot.
And I know that we have someone new here tonight, Vishal from Bihar, and he's been asking about certain industries, but I think that was just really good advice. I hope, Vishal, that you understood that, and we can talk later about some of the specific things that you were messaging me about. So that's great advice. I really like that. Thank you, Ximena.
Sorry, may I just ask one more? I'm really tempted.
Yes, absolutely.
So there may be times when I'm confused when I'm looking at working in a particular field or trying to decide. What does one do when they get confused?
So I'm a big advocate of gathering information. And so, like I mentioned previously, I'm looking into specific sectors, and I'll be a little more transparent. And I'm so sorry that I'm kind of guarded because I'm still working through it. But I'm interested in potentially getting into the tech sector. I have no experience with technology. I have never worked in it. I would not consider myself a tech expert, but what I see is technology is really is so crucial to be able to empower nonprofits to be able to do way more with the limited resources that they have. And so I'm taking a look at certain companies that I know are doing great things, leveraging technology services for good, for nonprofits or other agencies like that. I know nothing about it, but I know I'm now talking to somebody who knows somebody who used to work there. And so, okay, that is my first connection. And now that I've talked with her, she said, okay, I want you to talk to these two other people that know a lot more about marketing in particular there. And so now I'm getting connected with those. And so I think just the info gathering of don't be shy or don't feel like you're imposing on people that could help you, because people like to help in general. People like to help. And I can already tell, Anita, you're doing this. You love to help too. So I love that. That's something that I think the Hispanic community has taught me a lot too, is like, how can we help each other? Like, what do you need that I can provide? What do I need that this person might be able to provide? So anyway, all that to say, info gathering, and as you start gathering your information, I think you can get more honed into even just getting answers to your questions, like, do I need a specific degree or certification? What are the skills? Who do I need to talk to? What is the process if I'm interested in a particular company? What is the process that I should go about? Is it really more internally referenced? Do I go through LinkedIn? And you can just find out more and more information by leveraging your network and growing your network.
Amazing. Yes.
Good information, especially somebody like me who's just about to be in the job market, or I am.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, open it. I'm going to change it to gallery view. So if anyone would like to ask a question, please do so. We've recorded this, so even though it looks like some of the people who thought they were going to be here are not here, it will be on our website. Manish, do you have a question tonight? Salishma? Anybody? Okay, so Manish wrote his in the chat. What benefits of sales for an entrepreneur?
So
yeah, do you understand it?
If I'm understanding, and Manish, you can correct me, but are you saying, is it valuable to have a sales background to be an entrepreneur? Or what is the role that sales plays in being an entrepreneur? I can try to answer.
Second one, he said.
Second one. Huge. Huge. You, as an entrepreneur, you are influencing all the time. You have to influence investors, you have to influence potential employees, you have to influence your customers. And so you're, in a way, you're selling your vision, or you're kind of selling yourself before you sell your product, because your product doesn't stand on its own, or your service doesn't stand on its own yet. And so if you have a sales background, you're definitely leveraging that. If you don't, maybe you can, again, using your network, try to learn some good techniques. But sales, and I've not been, I will say I've not been in an official sales role, but I work very closely with sales, and have for the last 6 years. The best way to sell is not trying to sell, it's really trying to meet the need of that person, right? And so how is it that what you're offering helps meet the need of that person? And then it becomes a better relationship, and that's how you get repeat customers, greater loyalty, better employees, all that stuff, when you can establish that relationship of trust, and meeting needs. I don't know if that answered your question. I'm happy to answer any follow-up.
Do you have another? That was a great answer. Did you understand her, Manish? Manish, did you understand? Okay, anybody else have a question? Sometimes his audio is not working so good. He's one of our regular attendees, but maybe his audio is not working. Yeah. Navya? Harsha?
No, ma'am.
No? Anita?
I loved listening to Ximena. Oh my, I could just sit and talk to you for hours, actually.
Likewise, I need to interview you next time. Although I think you already interviewed each other, correct?
We
I
interviewed
haven't
each
seen
other
that one.
July
Okay.
4th. It was
Okay.
it was fun. And well, Salisha,
You'll have to send me the link.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
All right. Well,
but I am happy to, if anyone does have any questions, I'm always happy to connect. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of growing your network and helping how I can. So I am on LinkedIn. If you want to private message me, I'm more than happy to get back to you that way as well.
Thanks. We like to try to have one little picture to put on our website. If I could ask a few people to turn their videos on, so we don't just have names, but videos. That would be nice for just a few seconds. Okay, so Vishal, I haven't been meaning to, excuse me just a moment. Let me, Vishal, is that how you say your name, from Bihar? I need for you to go to our website and you will see the schedule. Hold on, let me stop the recording and then I can put the